maybe to start, you can tell me a little bit about how you started with photography and, you know, what pushed you into this field.
So, hi everyone, my name is Fethi Sahraoui, and I'm an Algerian photographer. To be honest, I don't know when it all started exactly, but I feel like I always wanted to make visuals and all. I think that I've realized too that I was quite hesitating between playing a musical instrument and making photographs and all. And at some point I had to decide between these two languages, and I found myself making pictures. But I think it all started when I was in my parents' place, because I was raised by my grandma. And when I was 14, I had to leave my grandma's place to spend 5 years with my parents and my brothers and my twin sister and all. And it was at that moment that I said to myself, I have to adopt this language, which is photography, but it didn't really work well until I went back to my grandma's place and I started, like, I bought my first camera and I started making pictures. And this was 10 years ago, by the way, or 11, or yeah.
So it was completely, you know, based on this need to capture things when you were moving between spaces. You would say this need to document what was happening around you. And
I think it goes beyond that, because I was like a shy person. I think it's still the case, and I've realized that you can have this camera which can help you to become as a sort of a passport, which will allow you to get into places and all. So I think that it was a sort of a basic instinct, or it was like out of necessity to adopt this this medium or this language, which is photography. And then it started evolving, because at the beginning I do remember that I was trying to make pictures of my family, which is still the case. Like it's been more than 10 years now, and I'm trying to photograph the same person who is my cousin. So I'm still trying to photograph my family. But then through time, things evolve and it goes beyond that. So I was trying to I would say to communicate or to get into a sort of a dialogue, depending on photography, by trying to interact by other subjects and other people and all.
Yeah. And is there I noticed that when you introduce yourself as an Algerian photographer. Do you feel like where you're based or where you are influences your practice? And I know that, for example, you are also you know, one of the other awardees, Abdul Shanan. So I mean, does that influence like the people that you're around, the other photographic communities that you have? How does that work with what you're doing as a photographer?
I think so. I have to admit that it's a tricky question, because I see photography, first of all, as a universal language. But at the same time, I think that what I'm doing is hugely impacted by my sociological background, but all what I've been witness to. So I think that I owe a lot of things to this country, which is Algeria, because it's offered me a field and it offered me so many things. So yeah, for me it's important to mention the place that I come from and all. But at the same time, I feel like as photographers, we are able to make stories everywhere and anywhere. So it was like a very personal choice to make out of this place like my field and my terrain, because I do believe that I have a better understanding of all what is happening here, like sociological codes and anthropological ones and all. But at the same time, after all these years of practice, I feel like I'm able like to make stories in Qatar or in Mozambique or in the US. Why not also, which is like a huge subject, but why not also like making stories in the Western world, like, because we have this tendency that it was always all the time photographers from the Western world who have been visiting us. So at some point, I feel like us, we are capable to go to the Western world and make our own stories too.
Yeah, actually, it's you know, like based on the project that you applied with, the wind that shakes streams. You know, we only saw one view of you know, the project that you submitted, but it's quite interesting what you're saying is I'm curious to know about what drives the you know, the photographs and the stories that you make, because you mentioned something like sociological and anthropological approaches, which I'm guessing this is what the project was that you approached on this town that you we will talk about later. But I mean, in general, when you are working on your next project or other projects, is there a trigger for when you start a project? Is it a body of research, or is it a person? You know, what brings you to start your research into projects that you then work on?
I think that there is so many triggers. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about myself. I feel like I'm someone who spent a lot of time like trying to watch the work of others, watching movies and reading. To be honest, I don't read that much, but yeah, I think that the trigger is maybe watching the work of photographers that I can admire and saying to myself, like, I can do like not necessarily similar stories, but like I can tell or narrate stories in my region. But I think that the biggest trigger for me is listening, because strangely enough, photography is a visual medium, but the biggest trigger for me, it was listening to stories in my entourage. So for example, with the project that I'm presenting in during the Tasweer exhibition and all, it all started when a friend of mine, he told me about the existence of this village, and about like, which is mainly about the subject of blindness, and about how in this village there is an intriguing number of blind people. So I do remember that he told me about this story around 2016 or 2017, and like it kept working in my mind, and I was like trying to visualize the village without even being able to visit it at all. And I remember that it took me at least 4 years or to set my feet in the village and starting interacting with people and document what was happening there. So for me, like, I think the biggest trigger is listening to stories in like in our environment and our entourage.
It was actually intriguing to see that based like when we were looking at your bio, that you know, you studied Black American photographers in the civil rights movement. So were these some of the photographers and people that you were seeing that were documenting things that, you know, inspired you to do the same as well? Because or like, was that just a completely separate choice out of your interests?
Oh yeah, absolutely. To make things more clear is that I've studied foreign languages in my university, and then for my master degrees, I opted for a master about American civilization. And then because I'm very attached to this thing, which is photography, so I said to myself that I need to do something about photography. And the theme was the contribution of Black American photographers during the civil rights movement, and it was like a very tumultuous area from the history of the U.S. And I was trying to make some research about how these local photographers who are like undergoing like racism and all managed to document their environment. So in a way or another, like it was a huge source of inspiration for me to do what these Black American photographers did in their homeland.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about the project that you submitted for the award, and you know, the choices that you made from it being black and white, from it being on your iPhone? Maybe you can just start from a technical perspective. Did seeing the village influence the way that you documented it, or how did that process happen for you?
So yeah, when it comes to this iPhone thing and all, it started for me like a while ago. And at the same time, like I don't want to be labeled the iPhone photographer, because there was like some articles and all were saying like I work only on iPhone. I think it's not the case. I try to adapt my visual language while I would say relying on the nature of the place that I'll be documenting and all. But from a technical point of view, I think that it becomes like using an iPhone on the field, it becomes more like a sort of, it's not a bad habit for me, but it's just a habit, and it's just a tool that I feel comfortable with. But this choice was out of sheer, I would say, necessity and naivety, because years ago, I've attempted to document what do we call as a popular neighborhood, which I'll try to avoid all the cliches, but often these popular neighborhoods tends to be dangerous and all. So I've embarked there with a huge camera, and things didn't work. So I said to myself that maybe being discreet and using an iPhone and all can help me. And funnily enough, even with the iPhone, it didn't work. And then later, I started one of my long-term projects, which was edited under a format of photo book and all. It's called Stadiumphilia. And there, I think it's, as the title might indicate the context, it's all about stadiums and youngsters and all, and how they, I would say, reinvent or readapt the spaces inside the stadium for their basic needs and all. So, and I think there it was like the choice of using an iPhone was more meaningful, because there is this huge debate in photography which is about are we looking forward to be visible or invisible? So for me, I think it was right in the middle. So to be honest, I really wanted to be present, and I wanted to like the youngsters that I were documenting, I wanted them to feel my presence and all, but at the same time I wanted to be one of them, and I wanted them to forget about my presence. So I don't know how to explain that, but it's so that's why it was for me something in the middle, like that thin red line between being visible and being invisible. So, and I think that a medium as the phone camera for me really facilitated the process, or it contributed in making it more easier. And then here with the project that deals with a very delicate topic, which is blindness, and which is the project that I'm presenting it in this exhibition. So yeah, I went there too with my main camera, but also the phone was always present. And strangely enough, because I get used to this tool, I felt like the pictures that I were making with the phone camera were more stronger and were more speaking to my heart. And also, so yeah, I think it's I'll keep saying it again and again. It's just a tool that we feel comfortable with it. So it's, for me, it's not about the camera, but it's about what your eyes can capture, and it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I think especially with the way that phone cameras can document things these days, that it's really about, as we can see with many of the projects that we receive as well, that it really is about the strength of what the subject matter is that you're documenting, and the perspective that you bring, and some of these other choices that you bring, like for example the black and white nature of your work. I noticed that even in the Stadiumphilia, you choose to have your work be black and white, so like these very conscious choices that you make as a photographer that impact the way that people see your work as well, and the images that you take.
Yeah, sure. I think that the word conscience is a conscious choice or something like that is very interesting for me. But when it comes to my approach, I keep asking myself this question, like before embarking on the every new adventure, photographic adventure. Is it maybe one of the main questions that I'm going to ask myself, if it's going to be color and black and white? And often I think that even before setting my foot or my feet there, like I start like constructing the story in my head, and I'm going to determine this choice if it's going to be color or black and white. Often it works, but not all the time, because I think that when you are there, like trying to construct the story and trying to make pictures and all, I think it's the field or the nature of the field that is going to decide so many choices. And then, yeah, I feel like basically most of what I've been doing is black and white, and it's more or less like a technical choice, but also it's I think that aesthetically speaking, black and white is something that speaks more to me. And then once again, from a technical point of view, because I live in a country located in North Africa, the sun can be very harsh and all, and I feel like something like black and white can works very well with the nature of the light here.
That's true. Yeah, with the sun, the black and white can create a lot more depth with the shadows and the colors as well. And I know that with this project that you started, that now that you've continued working on it, it's transformed in the way that what the project started with. So could you tell me a little bit more about how that happened and how it turned into more of a cinematographic work as well, and what you think the project will turn into as you're working on it?
Sure. Yeah, so I feel like what I'm going through now is like a real transitional period between all what is photography and cinematography, even if both mediums are strongly related to each other's, but at the same time they remain very different. So yeah, it's worth to mention that this project started during the early days of COVID, and then I've tried to multiply the visits to this village while I was trying to build this photographic story. And then, because we were talking about triggers, there was this trigger which is related to all what is sound and all what is animated image. But I do remember that the protagonist of the project, whose name is Ali, I was trying to talk to him and all, as I do all the time. And because he's most of the time with the sort of sticks, iron sticks, that they are like sort of improvised iron sticks that he used them when he's trying to cross the road, or when just he's walking in the area of his village. And what was quite fascinating is that whenever he's sitting and when he try to speaks about like an important point, so he do separate between those sticks, and then he starts making this strange sound. And I do believe that it was exactly at that moment I said to myself, wow, implicating, I think that if I'll be able to implicate sounds and moving images to this project, it can give it broader meaning. So I'm not trying to say to myself that I've reached the limit of photography at all. No, I think that it's photography as a medium is a very consistent one, and it can narrate the story very well. But I just said to myself that maybe, because to be honest, till now I don't know what I'm making a movie. I think I do believe that the movie itself is going to be an answer, but I just feel like giving this story more freedom, and it will at some point give it more energy, and it will tell it in a broader way. So I think that's why I've opted to migrate towards this cinematographic adventure.
Yeah, no, I think that's very interesting with the way that it's, you know, because of Ali and the sounds that he was making. And I think, like you said, photography is its own medium, but also when you depart once a project is complete, you know, especially with photography, the outcomes are usually, you know, a photo book or an exhibition, and sometimes you want something beyond that. And so the exploration of sound and image making and turning things into a film is sometimes the next step for a project that you don't feel has maybe answered all of your questions in that sense as well. So I'm excited to see how this film turns out, and you know, through the deeper research and exploration that you did in this town as well. Are there any other projects that you're working on beyond this one, beyond the wind that shakes dreams?
Yeah, definitely. So some of the projects that I've started in the past are still in progress. One of them is about rural celebrations, and I feel like if I'm going to make another new photo book, it's going to be about this project. And as I've mentioned in the beginning of this interview, I've been trying to photograph the same person for like the past 10 years, and this person is my cousin, and I've been trying to document him in his environment. And why this cousin? Because he's struggling with a mental disorder. So yeah, it's a very complex, but at the same time dear project to my heart. And yeah, at the same time I'm working on this movie project, and I wanted to say I'm trying to not forget that I'm a photographer, and I come from a photographic background, and I will remain forever as a photographer. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think it's quite interesting because different different photographers or different artists have different approaches to how they work. Some, you know, work just one project at a time. Like once you finish it, that's it. You never see the project again. Others like to keep things and go back to them. It's interesting to see how many projects you're working on, and how you work back and forth between them as well. I think maybe I'll just ask a question that I think maybe other photographers in the region would find to be interesting or helpful to them, which is, you know, are there certain points within your photographic journey that you felt was like a trajectory, like it helped launch you further, or you know, really solidified how you saw yourself as a photographer, or you know, supported you in a way where you really felt like, okay, this really helped me with this project, or this made me realize this, yes, I wanted to be a photographer. You know, are there distinct moments that you remember that happened within your photographic career?
Yeah, I see what you mean, and I feel like it's a very long journey. It's weirdly enough, it's full of uncertainty, but at the same time, it's full of joy. And for me, and I think that I can see that with my colleagues too, I think it's the hardest part is to keep the journey going, because it's a one that is full of highs and lows. Hopefully, like I feel like the highs have been dominating, but the lows are also omnipresent, and I feel like it's very important to deal with it all the time. And everybody or everyone from us have his own magical recipe to deal with all of this. And then when it comes to me, I think that the most important thing that happened to me during the last couple of years is creating this local collective and being part of it, which name is the 220. So we are not 220, we are just 10 photographers based in here in the Algeria, but also abroad. And for me, it created this sort of safe space that I can discuss with them my insecurities and my weaknesses, but also my ambitions and my upcoming projects. So yeah, if I can say that, I feel like photography itself is a very individualistic way of life, because often on the field we are alone trying to make our pictures and to do our stuff and all. But at some point, like when we get back home, we feel this urge to discuss with people and to tell our stories, but also to hear from them. So I think that's the most important thing that I've learned from
you founded
these
this
years of
220
practice. Sorry?
I'm just so you founded this 220 collective?
Yeah, I think that I was present during the beginning of the process. So yeah, with the group of friends, and I think that friendship is a very important element. So before I would say founding this collective, there was this element which is friendship, and then now it's more or less like a professional group or collective or institution. But at the same time, we try to do not neglect this magical element, which is friendship.
That's amazing. I think that really shows the work and the development that you're like the groups that you're trying to create and produce within your community. And I think it's not easy, like you said, as a photographer, to find others to share with as well, especially in the region. And this is, why we have Tasweer, like why we created Tasweer as well, is because it feels like there's a lack of that in our region. You can find it when you travel, but regionally it's through these smaller efforts by people in the photographic world that that it's moving. And there are a few places that we've seen, like a few organizations that many photographers go to and receive grants from and get support from. They're very little, and so it's like by each individual effort we're like growing this way of being able to support each other as photographers, I would say, which is really great to hear and to see.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that was once again, I'm insisting on that. I think there was the most meaningful thing that had happened to me. And then I think thanks to photography too, I had to I'm not afraid to say it, even if it sounds better pretentious, but it allowed me to have a better understanding of the world and of what's happening around me. And one of the coolest thing too, thanks to photography, I had to make friends from the Arab world and from all over the region. So I think without photography, I'll be just staying in my neighborhood and just watching movies and trying to maybe to imagine the world in a different way. So I think once again with photography, it was really different, and no regrets that I've adopted this choice or this way of life.